don't you think we should sort of start with this historic moment? We can talk about the politics in a moment, but to legislate to ban smoking for this generation, I was saying earlier, it's quite complicated. So today's 16-year-olds will be able to buy cigarettes legally all of their life. Today's 15-year-olds will never be allowed to buy a legal cigarette.
I think it's great. Look, I've never come across a parent or a grandparent who wants their children or grandchildren to smoke, whether or not they are smoking themselves. And 80,000 lives ended prematurely every year in Britain because of smoking. You wouldn't accept anything else, any other substance or activity creating that. So why do we tolerate cigarettes? If they were invented now, they would just be outlawed immediately. The tobacco companies, which are very wealthy and a big lobby, are going to fight this all the way. They'll keep on pushing, but you would just nip them, stub them out immediately.
People are going to be carded, though. You know, in 20 years' time, are you going to walk in to a newsagent and the newsagent says, I need to see your driving licence because I've got to say to you, if you are 34, I'm not selling you cigarettes, but if you're 35, it's OK.
Well, that was that, and that's why a lot of Tory MPs had an issue with this policy. It's not because they want to encourage smoking. They just think you have to have equality in the law. So you could have a household with 4 people in there, and if one of them is 16 in a year's time, he or she can't buy fags legally, but the 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old can. But I think ultimately they were wrong because what we all need... I speak as one who used to smoke until I was 40. It's a horrible, disgusting habit. I wish I'd never started. And we don't want young people smoking. And Rishi has taken a big hit again amongst some of his own MPs on this, but I think he did it for the right reasons, and I think it's really important. They tried to do it in New Zealand, but rode back from it. So
well, there's a change of government.
There was,
and a new coalition came in, and there was a very small right-wing anti-public intervention party. They also used the argument in New Zealand to reverse it is they'll lose the tax because the Exchequer, the Treasury gets about 10 billion now a year from cigarette smokers, but 2.5 billion of that spent on the NHS.
It's an important point, though, isn't it? In a democracy like ours, a parliamentary democracy, Parliament can make the law and then they can remake the law every year. So the question today is not are we legislating to ban smoking, but how confident can we be that every parliament for the next 20, 30, 40 years will stick with this law, because it could be reversed quickly if people want to.
I think this will be perhaps one of Rishi's legacies. Yes. Actually, that this law won't be changed and it will go through the House of Lords. There'll be some civil liberties issues about it. Some people will argue the same point about equality in law, but I think this will be his legacy. This will be on the statute book forever.
That's if it gets through, because there are lots of parliamentary stages to go.
Well, they'll get it.
There's a clock ticking on the general election. I hope it does.
It would be wicked if they don't.
Oh. And of course, the opposition, which polls say are going to become the government, did back it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of younger people don't realise that we've already had enormous steps towards reducing smoking. I mean, my children don't realise that you used to be, when I was younger, you used to be able to smoke at the pub. Inside.
In a restaurant?
In a restaurant.
No.
On planes.
An aeroplane.
But you
get onto a plane, you could be sitting on row 45 for a 7-hour flight.
I know.
And the 6 rows behind you, people would sit there with their cigarettes and their lighters. Yeah. And when the captain turned off the smoking side, everybody would light up.
Incredible.
And this massive cloud of smoke would rise up into the plane, and that was just normal.
That's right. But as you say, literally the row in front... You were apparently in the non-smoking area, breathing in the same air as the smoking area.
All night on an aeroplane. I mean, it was... I've done it. It was... Because, you know, it was the cheap seats. It was terrible.
I got on a train from King's Cross to Newcastle with a hangover. And, you get on, and it was very full, and I'm thinking, where shall I sit? And I walked along, and the final carriage, there was no one in here. So I sat in. It was the smokers' carriage. Because, of course, you used to be able to smoke everywhere on a train, and then they said only a single carriage. And, of course, everyone was coming in to smoke because they couldn't smoke in theirs. I got off 3 hours later and, I had a sore throat, a sort of fuzzy head, which wasn't the drink anymore, and I stank. I stank like an ashtray. Used to go home from work, because you could smoke at work, or a pub or a restaurant, and in the morning when you went to get your suit, it stank of tobacco.
On the London Underground.
Yes,
on the Underground,
Imagine
people were smoking.
This close to each other and someone's puffing away.
I know, kind of like in a packed carriage early in the morning.
When I started working on the Times in Parliament, I used to walk through the press bar. There was a bar for the journalists, which was rather busy, I might say, especially at 10 in the morning. But it was a fog of smoke all day.
And, of course, now we're not even allowed to show pictures of people smoking at this time of the morning.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't advertise any more tobacco. Shops can't openly display cigarettes. They have to be behind a
screen,
cover.
yes.
I think that's all right. I remember the battle in the Labour years over banning smoking in all these public buildings, restaurants.
Well, there was some cabinet rebellions over it.
John Reid and Tessa Giles, two cabinet ministers, voted against it on a free vote, just as happened now. With Suella Braverman. The difference for Sunak, of course, is he could face a leadership challenge.
The thing I remember, though, going to a primary school in my constituency, where you talk to the whole assembly of 11, 10-year-olds, and during this big debate and taking a vote amongst the children, every child put their hand up for the smoking ban in pubs and restaurants. And I remember saying, asking the question, why? And these children said, because I don't want my mum or my dad to die of lung cancer. And if we can stop them smoking when they go out in the evening, that's a really good thing. And actually, the younger generation have been advocates for this change. Yeah. And the interesting thing was, are they going to be advocates for keeping this law in place?
And it's interesting because they're also this vote yesterday is also about vaping, because vaping, of course, it's a good way to get people off smoking, but the worry is so many young people are taking up vaping because they are deliberately designed to look like sweet shops to draw them in.
Bright colours, cartoon characters, pretty flavours.
Bigger restrictions on vaping.
The Chief Medical Officer was very
important.
strong yesterday on this, wasn't he?
If you smoke, then vape instead of smoking. If you don't smoke, don't vape.
Exactly.
Yes, that's exactly,
Because why would you fill your lungs with something which you don't know what the long-term effect is going to be? And in my personal view, we made a mistake in our country over the past 10 years. We gave the impression that because it was better than smoking, it was OK.
Yes, that's right.
And therefore, I think lots of people were confused. Isn't vaping fine? And the answer is...
No.
We don't know.
We don't know, but, could
we
well
don't
be
know
bad.
all the side effects yet.
No.
But on smoking, lung cancer is the biggest cause of death in people, and the vast majority of cases of that are caused by smoking. Never mind the heart disease and everything else.
And a couple of interesting comments here from viewers, as ever. Zampa says, great they've passed the anti-smoking policy, but has anyone asked where the government's going to get the money that is generated by the taxes that you pay on cigarettes? Because that, obviously, is quite a significant amount of government funding. In 1995, you could buy, by the way, 20 king-size cigarettes for £2.50. Increases in tobacco duty, plus inflation, meant that by 2017, the price of the same pack had reached £10. It now costs £16.
Does it really? How do people afford it?
There's a lot of cigarettes that are smuggled in and they're not
all
taxed.
These taxes up?
Yeah.
I mean,
how did it happen?
All government.
Well, of course, they do it on the grounds of health. I mean, that's the argument, isn't
and
it?
then that tax has got to be replaced somewhere.
But that's it's a fair question, because the last figures I saw was just over 10 billion. I think it was 10.4 billion the government gets from tobacco duties. But the cost on the NHS of treating people from smoking illness is put around at 2.5 billion. So you've got that 7.5 billion gap. But on top of that, because smokers die quite a few years earlier than the rest of us, you're going to have to pay them state pensions. So actually, smokers, it's arguable that smokers subsidise the rest of us in terms of dying early, so you don't pay them a state pension.
Yeah.
Yes, there is an NHS cost, but they pay a tax.
Yeah.
But if they're ill, then they can't work.
Yeah, but also some smokers are ill for years and years and years. And huge
although they are quite a big burden on the National Health Service in terms of health.
Yeah, but it's a public health issue, isn't it? When it's the single avoidable cause of premature death.
So, but do they then come after alcohol?
Can I reduce the tone a little bit here? I'm going to apologise to you. I'm so sorry to do this, just to bring in a bit of politics. There is a general election coming up this year, right? Normally at this time, you're thinking to yourself, you know, as a political leader, can I find a wedge issue?
Yeah.
A wedge issue which is one where I can unite my own side and then cause terrible problems for the opposition, devise them all over the place. Are they really fit to govern?
You've got like a wedge issue radar at the moment,
I do.
haven't you?
I'm looking for them all the time.
You're always looking for wedgies, are you?
Well, I don't know.
Has Rishi Sunak given himself a wedgie, is what you're suggesting?
I mean, that is a rather, graphic way of putting it. But, you know, if you think what happened last night in Parliament, the Labour Party decided to whip the vote. So all Labour MPs were told to vote to support Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak said, I'm going to have a free vote on the Conservative side. And not only was there a big rebellion, but the rebellion included a lot of very senior people in his own cabinet.
Yes.
All of the people who are kind of slated to be leadership candidates either voted against him, like Suella Braverman or Kemi Badenoch or Liz Truss,
Robert Jenrick,
or they abstained. Abstentions, Penny Mordaunt, Preeti Patel, Claire Coutinho.
Who is Rishi Sunak's closest friend in Parliament.
But she abstained on this
Not
vote.
last night.
But she's got her eyes on the leadership.
So...
But why not vote for it anyway, but still have your eyes on
the
leadership? Is it like is it sending up a smoke signal?
It is.
Whoa, I see what you did there.
No smoke without fire.
That's exactly what it is. Because remember the Conservative Party members voted for Liz Truss to be leader and Prime Minister, not Rishi Sunak.
No.
After the next election, the Conservative Party is going to go further to the right, so they'll pick on this as a libertarian issue. So they're all getting their report cards
I still
ready.
think Tory party members who will vote in that leadership contest, they've got children and grandchildren, and I think a lot of them will think he did the right thing.
He did the right thing. I absolutely know that.
So Liz Truss is actually making the wrong call.
Well, I saw her last night. It was the launch of her book last night.
Oh.
And she was in her speech, she actually got cheered when she said how she voted against the smoking ban.
Right. Did she provide any more clarity?
That sounds remarkable.
And Suella Braverman was there and telling people too that she also hadn't supported the smoking ban.
It's the Tory hard-right sect.
Is she talking to you after your interview?
She did talk to you, actually.
Did she?
She did.